I wanted to watch this other video. If I can get a moment of your time. CNBC, 1.5 million views in 10 days, did a driving test on the new Chinese electric vehicles.
We've been hearing a lot of this.
You've got companies like NIO, companies like Lishan, these Chinese NEV makers, as good, if not better than Tesla right now.
This,
I know people will say Americans won't buy Chinese. You know what? You ask somebody, do you want to pay $9,000 for an SUV, or do you want to pay $19,000 or $20,000 for an SUV? No contest.
Listen, buddy, I bleed red, white, and blue. I'm American. I got my beer, I got my flag, and I got my freedom. I will only buy cars from Germany or Japan. Thank you very much. I will not buy Chinese cars.
China is the largest auto producer in the world. 1 in 3 cars is built there. The age of the much feared Chinese auto export has begun.
For Americans, it's hard to process that because we don't see Chinese cars on American roads. Trust me, go to Australia, to Mexico, to Brazil.
This guy's got to be an idiot because people in my comments told me that wasn't happening. I've been told so many times that like this is just not going to happen. That in fact, these cars are all death traps that explode and they will not sell, and people will figure that out.
American trade groups and others worry China will do with cars what it has done with countless other industries: eradicate competition with cheap labor and materials and abundant government support. The Biden administration slapped a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs in an effort.
Yeah, I want to talk about this though. This is actually interesting. It's like a little mini marketing discussion here. China, huge advantage in EVs, dumping them at costs that no one else can compete with. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, it depends on how much weight you give to government subsidies being unfair, but irrespective, whether it's going to happen, it's happening, right? In response, other countries desperate to protect their domestic car industries start throwing up tariffs. So America, 100% tariff. Europe threw up 100% tariff. I think Brazil is throwing up a tariff. Canada just did it. Canada did it yesterday because they want to increase the price of Chinese cars so that they don't destroy their own competition, their own local competition. That's level 1. Level 2 is China being like, nuh-uh, take those down. And what China is doing in response is trying to find targeted tariffs that really hurt. China just did a massive tariff on, I believe it was dairy and other farming products from Europe. They're basically hitting European farmers hard because China's a big purchaser of that. Like America doesn't buy, we have a fucking million farmers. Now you're seeing these articles like dairy farmers plead to European governments, why are we caught in the middle of this? Please don't let this feud with China hurt our business. Now there's political pressure. Do you know what I'm saying? Now European politicians have to be like, oh, do we back down on the Chinese tariffs or do we? China's playing hardball. And in the past, this usually doesn't tend to de-escalate, it tends to escalate. Now then more and more walls get thrown up between these countries and different power blocks. And it leads to, whether it's good or bad thing, leads to higher prices, right? Leads to higher prices. It's definitely the early innings of what could be very inflationary. And the reason it's so important for China is they have to sell this stuff. I want you to understand that China's economy, if they cannot grow exports, it's in a really bad spot. And the only thing holding it together and keeping any kind of growth is them drastically increasing their share of exports. That's where we find ourselves, on a weird precipice where China needs this badly. Can you further explain why not being able to export products leads to inflation? For example, if China can make a $9,000 high quality SUV and you could buy that, then your cost of vehicle is lower. But if there's a huge tariff on that and it doubles the cost, then not only does the domestic competition have to bring down their prices to compete, but they can keep them high and you're paying more. Now, if there's tariffs on everything, as their trade war goes back and forth, price on everything that is imported will stay high. Inflationary. You're paying more for goods and services. Just if it is like many things you use are built in other countries because those countries are specialized at one thing and they can make it cheaper. And if you throw up a tariff on that, then the cheapness advantage that they get from being specialized is thrown away. The argument that like a Ford might make is that we cannot make cars as cheaply as China because we don't have the government subsidies they do. Throwing taxpayer money and credits and everything to make sure they can make it cheaper. We can't do that, so it's not fair. That's their argument. It's tough to say. For the consumer, like we just want a great cheap EV, but there's also a national security risk where if you outsource all of your manufacturing, it's a risk where they're getting all the technical knowledge, all the the forefront of all the industry. The short-term benefit of your consumers getting a cheaper car could be long-term bad for your nation. It's a tough issue. It sucks that many issues in life are tough and have multiple sides. I would love to just tell you the simple one-liner and then everyone check and spam it and we could all go, yeah. But it's actually a complicated issue, many sides. It's nuanced. I like the subtle smell of diesel when I drive. Okay, so you're not even on the same discussion at all. You just want to talk about how you like a dope-ass gas-powered car. You would buy a North Korean car if you could toss coal in it and it burns black.
Tesla got caught flat-footed in the China market because no one anticipated such a severe turn to clean energy vehicles.
No one! This is Conversations between me, Stans, and Lud in 2019. Next 5 years. Exactly 5 years later. They've done this for every industry.
All the legacy automakers are scrambling.
They've superscaled the set of features that consumers are demanding.
So how formidable are Chinese EVs? CNBC tried a few to find out.
Let's find out.
So this is the Tesla Model Y. This is currently the best-selling car in the world.
Acceleration on these things is incredible.
Tesla is a really highly respected brand in China, but homegrown Chinese automakers are really catching up.
And in some cases, surpassing. In fact, there are around 140 EV brands in the country.
If you ever see the picture or a video of fields of discarded EVs in China, they'll use that to say, oh, look, they're fucking disastrous. What it really is there's such an incredible amount of startups that many of them go out of business or are completely leapfrogged within 6 months by someone doing it better. If you ever see a model that's defunct or didn't sell or whatever, it's because there's so much competition. It's such a hotbed of competition. Even the best-selling EVs are making almost no money because they're competing so fiercely on price. Again, while there is government subsidies, this is like more capitalist than our own system. The average consumer in China is getting a better deal every 6 months. Like the prices are going down and the quality is going up. I'm not trying to make China out to some free market paradise. Other industries are not exactly like this. Many of them have one state-controlled victor. And in fact, EVs may end up being that way after they've found a champion in this battle. In this moment, I'm just showing how this works.
And at least in China, some of them are outselling Tesla. With a few technical exceptions, like Chinese-owned brands such as Volvo, Polestar, and Lotus, Chinese cars aren't available in the US yet. The BYD Tang, for example, made by Tesla's biggest Chinese rival. BYD is known for making cars very cheaply.
One of BYD's big selling points is that they're able to give you a car a little bit of a shorter range than a Model Y, but at the same time, it's $11,000 cheaper.
How do they get the cost down that much?
Between 2009 and 2023, the Chinese government handed out an estimated $231 billion in subsidies and tax breaks. BYD, which is not government-owned, received $3.7 billion in direct subsidies between 2018 and 2022.
Yeah, there you go.
Most of it in that last year. BYD sold roughly 3 million cars in 2023, about half of them electric and half plug-in hybrid. This year, they're forecasting 4 million. Contrast that with Tesla, which saw sales fall year over year in the first 2 quarters of 2024. BYD is also one of the largest battery makers. About 40% of China's cost advantage is attributable to its engine batteries, which make up.
And yet, Tesla is still valued by the market at more than like the entire global car industry. Well, that's because BYD's CEO isn't a modern-day Da Vinci. That's true. Actually, I've never even seen BYD's CEO tweet once. I don't even know every waking thought of BYD's CEO. So of course their company's not worth as much.
BYD has done a phenomenal job of making in-house 75-80% of the parts that go into their cars. So they own the batteries and the battery supply chain.
Automakers benefit from low costs and a localized supply chain. This can be seen in the G6 from XPeng, a relatively small company that listed on the New York Stock Exchange in 2020. It hasn't done so well, although results were solid in the last 2 quarters of 2023.
What's their pitch to the consumer? What made them different from the others?
Price. So they have a lot of other features in there as well. So we were in the XPeng G6. When you look at the specs and the dimensions, it's almost identical to the Model Y.
But at $27K, it's almost $9,000 cheaper.
This is crucial. Chinese cars aren't just cheap, they offer value for money.
What Henry Ford did to this industry is he took something that was a rich person's toy and made it so that anybody working in a factory could afford it. China is democratizing the smart EV.
He did do that. He also had a lot of choice words about the Jews. 2 things to know about Henry Ford. Good things? Can you imagine if I said that was what Henry Ford was known for. He was known for inventing the assembly line and saying like a lot of really positive things about Jewish faith. Like on Christmas, he'd be like, damn, I wish it was Hanukkah for me. That's
Chinese EVs tend to have a lot of bells and whistles. For example, I could ventilate my seat to deal with the summer heat. I could change a setting so that this EV sounds as though it's running on gas.
Let's go find his old tweets. First of all, that's weird. You can make it sound like it's running on gas. That's very cringe, I think, to once. But that one chatter, what if you could just like have it splash a little diesel around to give the smell? Do you know what I'm saying? That could be kind of fire.
And I could tell the AI assistant to park the car without me. This is very handy.
I can't
EV
do that,
makers
Brandon.
leverage these affordable tech features to target specific customers. Take NIO, for example. It was a hyped IPO on the NYSE back in 2018, but shares are down 90% from a 2021 high due to sluggish sales growth and high cash burn.
2019, I'm like convinced Chinese EVs, they're going to beat Tesla. It's coming. I'm ahead of the game. I look at the market and I'm trying to pick which one to invest in. That Warren Buffett put money into BYD. BYD seems like the safe pick. BYD. And then I see a picture of NIO's car and it looks fancier to me. And I go, that's the one. Buy NIO stock. Chinese Tesla. I made 12 grand today off of my NIO stock. Everything's going up. It's not going to stay that way. Aren't you the one with 70K in NIO? Okay, let's not point fingers. All right, whoa.
This is just a classic Wall Street bets loss chart and a pattern we'll most likely see often throughout.
This is my investment in fucking NIO. I didn't actually lose much, if any, on NIO, but it was the opportunity cost. I've lost money. Actually, if I really think about it, all of my money that I've ever lost in stocks is in China. I'm not even exaggerating. I literally think outside of maybe like a few hundred on something, all of them I've ever lost on stocks is in China. I have long since abandoned trying to invest in China.
NIO has had its own way of dealing with charging challenges. Battery swapping.
This is cool too. I guess it's not a big deal as I thought it might have been. I think batteries have gotten so much better. 2019 when I looked more into this, because I think people complain a lot about having to sit there and charge their EVs. You know, it's kind of a pain. You got to sit there and wait. So what NIO did was this battery swapping where you just drive in, it just takes your battery out, puts a new one in, pre-charge, you drive out. It's a cool idea, but in practice, I don't think people are making their car choice based on it.
There are 3,500 battery swapping stations around the country, most of which are NIOs.
A lot of China auto industry analysts say the tech-forward features in and around these cars are really where Chinese automakers have a leg up on global competition.
The AI assistant Nomi is a draw as well. While other car AI systems respond to direct voice commands such as turn off the air conditioner, people on social media say that Nomi sounds more like a person. Hey Nomi, I feel so cold. 我很冷.
So, for example, instead of saying turn off the air conditioner, I would say,
I'm become best friends with my car.
Feeling really cold right now. And then it would say, oh, okay. And then I was like, how about I just turn down the air conditioner? You know, and then it would also make some jokes sometimes. So, you know, when it was signing off, it was like, bye.
It's no longer how many units of hardware you sell. It's all the data and analytics and aggregation and monetization of services that happen after you sell the car.
Yeah, this is why Apple was trying to get into cars. They were trying to get ahead of this wave, but they ended up abandoning it. It's the idea that like we just spend time in cars. The money to be made might eventually be kind of like phones. Just and like all the apps and things by owning the hardware, you can like get a 30% tax on all the apps that are used in cars. You can just, especially when self-driving becomes bigger, people might just be sitting in their cars a lot and want to spend money on movies or whatever. And like you own the storefront.
Chinese EV makers are trying to distinguish themselves somehow. So they keep putting in all these different technology features.
My white ass is gonna crash if you put the minions up on the dash. If I gotta hear banana, I'm laughing too hard. I'll smash into a wall.
But then there were some that were not as useful, and in fact didn't really work very well. So in 2 different cars we tried the auto parking. It was a little stressful.
你好小P，自动补车 Please park the car. So that didn't quite work. We're about 7 or 8 inches from the car next to us. We didn't hit it, so that's a good thing. But I think we're gonna have to try parking again.
When we speak to a lot of analysts, they say that Chinese drivers really like these technology features. But on the other hand, it's unclear how these tech features are going to resonate with drivers outside of China.
And one reason Chinese car makers can keep prices low might be that they sometimes don't offer more bang for buck. They make compromises.
You could really tell the difference from the ones that were pricier. They felt better. There weren't as many kind of odd designs that were inside the car. For example, in one of the cars that I was in, the steering wheel was kind of off compared to where I'd be sitting. The windshield wipers was placed in an odd place for my hand.
And even the premium vehicles show signs that these are new companies and automakers haven't worked out a lot of the kinks yet. So are foreign automakers doomed in China? Some industry watchers have said they suspect it will be hard for non-Chinese firms to compete when homegrown brands are tapping in so well to the Chinese preference for tech.
BYD has already established the proof of concept that they can execute on a business model and be competitive with anybody worldwide. This other notion of a greater ecosystem built around a digital system may very well be the future, may be the TikTok of cars. I'm not ready to say absolutely they're going to run away with everything because they have a better digital experience.
The big challenge is going to be to convince people overseas who have brand loyalty to the GMs and the Toyotas and the VWs.
Bro, I disagree so hard. It's not, the challenge is the geopolitical tariffs. If they could get the cars over here at $9,000, people, or at like a massive discount, people will buy them. The thing is, people said that about Japanese cars in the 80s. They said, people won't buy Japanese cars. Yeah, they're cheaper. Yeah, they seem to be higher quality. But people love Ford and Chevy and GM. They won't buy them. And then they did. They bought them fucking hand over fist. I think we're in an age where brand loyalty is less powerful than it ever was. It still exists, don't get me wrong. The old way of just kind of counting on consumers to stick with you is dead because people have so many easy ways to get new opinions. That was interesting. That was a good video. Quack, let's do a react on that one.